just to follow up on that directly, it was my understanding, something was brought to my attention about a March, the possibility of that formula for the distribution of funds to the community colleges being dealt with in March, or that it would be dealt with in March or have to be delayed until later on in the year. Am I mistaken in that, or does that ring any bells with you?
No, March does not call out any specific event to do that. It's a budget year to budget year analysis. Obviously, with this year's rescission, the community colleges have been challenged financially, and so we're dealing with that as well. But clearly, there are those that contribute to the system, and that those that share in the success of others. And so, but March does not have a specific date attached to it. No.
I had, of course, Senator Kane's own reaction, having just seen you yesterday wearing your other hat. How long have you been involved in this position at the central office, Mr. Murphy?
So I've been appointed by the board here on an interim basis since November 28th or something like that.
How long is it expected that Dr. Austin will be in place as an interim president? Is there some kind of date as to when a permanent selection will be made?
The selection will be dependent upon the selection, as I said. Hopefully, the recommendation will go to the governor in April. Depending upon the candidate, perhaps this summer it would start, perhaps sooner if the individual is capable of beginning sooner. If the person, he or she, is coming from another system, it would be a June, July time frame is our guess currently. It's been
alarming to me, the functioning of this office since I've been in the legislature, and that's not a word I've used about any other agency that I deal with in the state. This is the fourth leader that I've seen there in the short period that I've been in, two interim heads and the tail end of a previous chancellor and the brief reign of the president in between. And it's the sort of thing that makes me think that there's something inherently dysfunctional about this structure or about the board which is in charge of it. It's a very poor performance, and I guess I'll say that to you bluntly because you haven't been there to be blamed for it, but you're in a position to reflect on it. Is there something you could say to restore my confidence in the function of the central office of the state university system?
Yes, I can. Understand that up until 18 months ago, there were two boards and two chancellors running two different systems, the colleges and the state universities and Charter Oak, three different systems, which had its own leadership. 12 months ago, that became one leadership. So there's nothing dysfunctional about that. If anything, that act of combining those systems will far more instill some stability and regularity to these appointments. So I would suggest that you may have seen some turnover, but it is not a result of the design of the current system that's in place, in my judgment.
It concerned me when the merger was first made that the community colleges seemed to be functioning at that point reasonably well in a structure which permitted them the sole attention of the administrators who oversaw them. And I wonder if you feel that their input has been, that their level of involvement has been as strong in the merged structure as it was when they had their own administrators to relate to directly.
Well, I obviously wasn't there when they were a separate system. I can tell you that we have regular president's meeting, which includes the meetings of all the community colleges and the universities. I can tell you that we've been going out to the community colleges to talk about the issues of transfer and articulation, and about issues of the remedial efforts that are underway. We have done our best to provide or to allow for and seek out input from the colleges as possible. So it's difficult for me to empirically give a measurement of input prior to today, but I can tell you in my judgment and in Dr. Austin's judgment, we have done our level best to make sure that there's been input from the community colleges and going the other way as well.
This McGuire Associate study that you mentioned before is for purposes of strategic planning. Is that correct?
Well, it's for purposes of enrollment management, for purposes of these folks. Step back a second. One of the things that's happening nationwide to all public university systems is a critical look at their ultimate value. Previously, when University of Connecticut was here, it was discussed. It was touched upon briefly. What value is public education to our economy, to the workforce development? And we could wax philosophic about that for quite some time. But what's happening is an analysis of a critical look at branding of public institutions, of online learning, and what does that mean, and what is the impact of that, and what kind of dollar ultimate value budget impact are those strategies. So McGuire Associates have had experience in Pennsylvania and other states, certainly aware of what's going on with our competitors in Massachusetts and North Carolina and out west and in Iowa. So we need to bring them on to share with us that intelligence to reposition and make sure the strategic viewpoint going forward of this system is the most enlightened and most intelligently managed vis-a-vis our competitors, which are other states in the union. And that's what we look forward for them to provide.
I am jumping around on you, and my apologies for that, but turning to the budget for a moment, which is very hard for me to absorb, in part because it's been so many things have been shifted around under new categories that it's difficult to make comparisons. You said before the community college the colleges were essentially receiving the same amount that they were last year. But does that reflect the fact that I believe they had a 5% rescission at some point by the governor, I'm assuming in November of last year? Is that rescission restored, or are we taking out that as the new baseline?
No, the governor's budget did allow, and I'll let Bill Bowes, our finance CFO, correct me if I'm wrong, but the governor's proposed budget granted the increases that we requested, the salary increases that are built into the union contracts, but did reduce a 2% rescission, and that 2% was based upon the 2013 budget. So given that every scenario that we were working through, that is challenging, but we believe will be manageable. I think that may be answering your question.
It also concerns me the change, as I think Senator Harp mentioned before, that the change in the scholarship program, eliminating the scholarships for full-time students, seems to fall disproportionately on the community colleges, which I think are maybe 2/3 or more part-time students. So at a time when they certainly are strained financially, their students are also going to be hit. Is that something that's been taken into account in making the change in that program?
Well, certainly we did propose the changes in that program. It's in the governor's budget. The community college, actually, the numbers I'm told, there's about 30% part-time student in the community colleges and 70% full-time. Is that correct, Braden?
It's actually about 60%, 60 to 65% part-time students.
Then you're correct, 60% part-time student. So that will have an impact on that as well. As I say, we're being briefed on this tomorrow. We need to see the entire proposal before we have an opinion or judgment on it. But your observation is a correct one.
When I had the interim chancellor of the central office before this committee 2 years ago, I talked about what strikes me as an administratively heavy load in both the four regional colleges and in the central office. I had at that point a program review study that had just come out with a list of the job titles that I thought was remarkable. Among the four state universities, 4 presidents, 8 vice presidents, 7 associate vice presidents, 16 deans, 7 associate deans, 4 provosts, 9 chief officers, 60 directors. In the central office, the chancellor, the senior vice chancellor, the vice chancellor, the associate vice chancellor, 3 associate vice chancellors, 2 assistant vice chancellors, a chief officer, 9 directors. This is the sort of thing that, again, in not knowing any more than what you see when you look at the titles, you can't help but look at and think that an awful lot of people are being paid a lot of money without any of them instructing any students whatsoever. Has there been a look led by the central office at eliminating, reducing the number of administrative positions? It seems like that the central office's reason for existence is to reduce the number of administrators that are needed for the function of these colleges.
Yes, sir. That's exactly, Senator, the result of the merger of the 2 systems. That's where the $6 million in savings comes from. And I'd be happy to send to you and share with you the titles in the central office now as compared with what that report that you're referring to cites.
Could you submit that to the committee, please?
I shall.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your answers. I look forward to having further conversations with Dr. Austin as this goes forward. It's an area of great concern to me. I mean, both because I think the function of all these schools, but above all the community colleges, is essential to having a fiscal recovery in the state. I come back and forth between here and the Human Services Committee, and I feel like essentially I'm working with exactly the same issues, that we won't have opportunity unless we can provide good low-cost education. And I have to say I'm prejudiced by the fact that in dealing with the community colleges in my area, Tungus and Naugatuck Valley, I've been so impressed with what I've seen there. But having been a teacher myself, Rob was talking about being a student at Naugatuck Valley. I was a teacher at what was then Greater Hartford Community College, and I feel like it's far better than what it was in those days, and that these campuses have an excellent spirit, and I know they've been doing more with, if not with less, with the same for many years, and I hope that their ongoing success is a priority for you.
It is, Senator.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And any of the